Wow. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for those of you who are in the other side of the pond, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm Kelly Hoey. I'm the author of Build Your Dream Network. And this morning, for me, New York time, I am chatting with my good friend, Monica Parker, founder of Hatch Analytics. Good morning. Good afternoon, Monica.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to you as well. Thank you for getting up early, squirrely, to talk to me.
My pleasure. I mean, hey, it enabled me to find squirrel gifts, and because nothing makes me happier these days than finding good gifts. So for the folks who do not know Monica, she, as I noted, was founder of Hatch Analytics. They are behavioral science nerds, and I can say that because you say that on your website. Change management consultancy. They study human behavior, how it interacts in the workplace. Really smart people, and I have the great pleasure of being a hatchling and getting to work with Monica. So not only you're getting a friendship conversation, you're getting a work conversation, but what we're really going to talk about is the topic of wonder. And I just have to note on the gift thing, the wonder gifts aren't so great.
No, not so great. No, although Eleanor Rossini did make me a Wonder Woman gift, which is pretty exciting.
The Wonder Woman gift, and I used it again this morning. The Wonder Woman gift is good. But when you look wonder, that's all like, but before we get into, what is wonder?
Like the finger.
Yeah. But we're not, I want to get to that next. First, I want to know what led you to researching, studying, delving into wonder?
It's sort of strange. And I realize when I talk to people because, and even that little voice in my head sometimes says, but stay in your lane. So I'm this workplace person, right? This is what I've done for at least the last decade, is looking at how people behave in the workplace. And so I actually set out to do research and prepare to write a book on change management. And when I started to do that, I started looking back at my work history. So I come to starting Hatch with a bit of a dog-legged journey. So I studied design in undergrad, and then I went on to get my grad degree in the UK, in Belfast at Queen's. Give a little shout out to Queen's University in Belfast, and studied organizational behavior and what sustains behavior. But in between, I was a homicide investigator for the Department of Justice, and I worked with men and women on Florida's death row trying to get them off. So I know that's a bit unusual, but during that time and during this history up to the point of looking to write a book about change management, I've been fascinated in what allows people to be resilient and to manage change, and not just change that like changing your workplace, but existential change, which I don't know, maybe might be a little appropriate right now. Like things that we can't manage, that just happen to us. And so through this, I'm obviously very interested in some of the work of Brené Brown and her work around vulnerability and resiliency. But what I learned is one of the key ways that people are able to manage big change, not just little change, but big existential change, is through awe and wonder, being able to have a sense of curiosity around what's happening to them, and then being able to find the moments of awe, even in the negative experiences. And so I started finding that as one component that I wanted to study. And then I just ended up going down this rabbit hole, and it became, just almost an obsession, something that I could find everywhere, and also just started to feel really meaningful to me. And I realized that it was something that I thought was worth sharing, and also worth giving a bit of, rigor, scientific rigor to it. So it didn't just sound like some, saccharine self-help hoo-ha.
Right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. But also, we don't need any more of that. Okay. So with wonder, since, we talked about the gifts before, and you say the word wonder. I wonder what's on Netflix tonight. Right. Okay. No, that's not what we're talking about.
No.
When you're saying the rigor, the study, what you're looking at, when you talk about wonder, what are we talking about?
So when I talk about wonder, it's really a journey. So it's a process that encompasses two main attributes: curiosity and awe. So Curiosity, most people understand what curiosity is. It's the idea of being open, having a high degree of exploratory behavior, a desire to understand why things happen. That's sort of the beginning process. And then awe, which is the bit that actually changes our brain. So awe is a fascinating emotion. It is the only emotion that is dually valent. So what do I mean by that? That's sort of psychology speak for saying that most emotions sit on one side or the other of either a positive or a negative. So happy is a positive emotion, right? Fear is a negative emotion. But awe can be both, and sometimes even at the same time. And so it can be both awesome or awful. It can be both of those things. But what's fascinating about awe is it's two elements that have to be met for an awe experience. So first, it has to be something that literally almost takes our breath away, that sort of makes us go, wow, that is incredible. Either that's an incredible vista or an incredible experience or an incredible song, something that really strikes us as being novel and different and breathtaking. But what makes awe really unique is that then, based on the experience, it actually changes our perspective, our schema, the lens through which we view the world. And that change makes us feel like a small component part of a bigger system. And so it's this idea of what's called small self in the psychology world, that it says, I am so overwhelmed by what I've seen. I feel like a small part of the world. And because of that, now I'm forever changed. And that can happen from both positive and negative experiences. And I think probably people can really relate to that right now. And so that is what wonder is this journey from, am I open to seeing things? Am I curious about them? And then do I find something that is so striking that I'm actually changed by it?
Wow. Have you seen, like, are there stories or examples where you either your own life or something else that you've seen? I mean, it could be a Florida death row example from your past career. Yeah. You've had many careers, as I know, but is there something that you like, a story that kind of strikes you?
Well, when I try to explain this to people and I get sort of like a look like, what is she talking about? And I get that a lot, even from my parents, maybe especially from my parents. But I think the best way to describe this is the idea of the overview effect, which is astronauts. So when astronauts first went into space, any astronaut generally is someone that is military, right? These are people who are hardcore military people. They are usually from the Air Force. They have very, rigid training, and yet they go up into space. And when they come back, some of the first people who came back from being in space started things like transcendental meditation or sustainability initiatives, because what happened when they saw the Earth from outside of our little bubble forever changed them. And it's actually been given a name. It's the term is the overview effect. And this effect of seeing the world from space actually changes our entire perspective on our lives and how we want to operate through the world. Now, obviously, we can't all go into space, but that transition that happened to these astronauts, and it's amazing when you look at the language, they all use the same language. I felt so small. I realized that my problems were small. I realized that the world was one unit and that I was just a part of it. And so looking at that kind of language, if we can find other examples of that, then that really is an opportunity. And I think that the overview effect is a great description. There's no question that even small elements can also have these kinds of changes. So there's this great piece of research being done by people in prison systems, and it's called the Blue Room research. So what they do is take people who are very violent, who are very anxious, who are having issues in prison, and they give them an opportunity. They say, you can either have an hour where you have alone time, you can have an hour out in the yard, or we can put you into this room. And this room will show you images, beautiful, awe-inspiring images of different natural environments. And you can pick which one you want, and you can sit in there and just watch it as a video for an hour. And what they found is the majority of prisoners will take that opportunity, and their incidences of violence lower, their incidences, their reported resiliency improves. And so it's just these little things. You don't actually have to go out of this world to see them. Just simply allowing yourself to experience them from a different perspective can have the same impact.
Wow. Wow. I have to do this. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning. Good morning. And it's lovely to stumble upon you. So thank you for being here. And also, too, she's just noted this may be.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do you know
I am familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there? I was going to say when Teresa put that up, was there other books or before? I want to say I know you've. Let's talk about your 100-day project because you've been writing some blog posts on that. So you're doing writings on wonder, but talk about the 100-day project and talk about some of the other things that people might want to go and look and read about if they're like, what is this thing this woman is talking about?
So I was inspired to start the 100-day project because of a mutual friend of ours, Ellen Rossini, who is an incredibly talented filmmaker, cinematographer, director, and she wanted to do 100 days in film. And she said, you guys should take a look at this project. So it's basically called the 100 Days Project, and it encourages anybody who wants to create, who wants to be a maker, who wants to share, to take 100 days and commit to doing some small little piece of that over the course of 100 days. And I have to be honest that I have been feeling very uncreative lately. I mean, just absolutely zero mojo-less lately. So I was sort of struck by, I love Anne Lamott and her idea, bird by bird. Oh, there she is, Eleanor Rossini. It's from our lips to God's ears.
Exactly. From our lips to YouTube. There's what happens.
There you go. Amazing. And basically the 100 Days Project encourages you to just do that little thing. And I thought, well, this is my version of bird by bird, my little bit of just an inch by inch of some creative thinking. And so I have been doing my 100 Days of Wonder, and just writing a little bit every day about what wonder means, how we can find it, why it matters. Because I think that there are a lot of people right now who maybe think, I don't need another thing that I feel obligated that I have to look for, or I don't want to feel like there's another thing I'm failing at. And what I want people to feel is that this is an opportunity to find something good and inspiring and positive, even in the most negative elements of our lives, which I think, unfortunately, we're surrounded by. Some of the things I'm reading, I do love Brene Brown. I actually find some really fascinating reading about, I just finished, it's a bit depressing, there's no question, but I do read a lot of diaries and journals from people who have either been prisoners of war, even in the concentration camps. Just read the Night trilogy recently, because these are people who have no control and yet still are able to find hopefulness. And artists, as well as I love reading about architects. I find architects really, Frank Lloyd Wright is a great example of someone who tries to create cognitive awe in the spaces that he creates, this idea of compression and release, that you come into spaces that have these crescendos that strike you. And so it's sort of a little bit of everything. I'm a Gannett. I pick it all up.
No, but you're absolutely right when you talk about where we have seen people overcome really appalling situations, either that have been out of their control, and what happens. Like how they have, I don't want to say overcome it, but just their story in that. And I think it gets back to where you started off with wonder and awe. That awe can be awesome or awful, and the fact that we have this range. And I think about my own life right now. It's an awful situation, but it's pretty damn awesome at 7 p.m. every night when everyone's out there beating their pots and pans and thanking all the essential workers. So. Yeah.
And it's about finding those moments. And I think that one of the challenges is, and I'm hoping that maybe we're transitioning out of this, is that we have become a society obsessed with happiness and trying to be happy and find happiness, and everything is about, 10 steps to being more happy. And then of course there's 10 steps to being more productive and higher performing, which is, if you're happy, then you should be. And I find that is unrealistic. It's not, it shouldn't even be a goal that we should be chasing happiness all the time, because life is not meant to be one note. It's not intended to always be happy, but we can always be at least in a state of all preparedness. We can be ready to have that moment that takes our breath away, even if it's something that's tragic. But if we try to spackle over our emotions with, well, this bad thing happened, but I'm meant to be happy now, I think that really stunts our ability to feel. And I think that also, in a strange way, also almost makes us less empathetic when we see other people who are struggling with their emotions, either in our teams or in our work environments, in our families. When they can't just sort of be buoyant and happy again, then we judge them silently. And I think society does as well. And I want to get to a place where we see wonder as the goal and the outcome, as opposed to just everybody trying to be happy.
Well, do you think this is why, I'm saying, people say annoying things like, well, it was meant to be, that those kind of little platitudes, or as we see numerous leaders. And when I say leaders, some of them are political, some of them are media, some of them are influencers, some of them are celebrities who are like, oh, well, people are going to die anyway. And that's their kind of way of dealing with this pandemic. And that kind of, well, we're all supposed to be happy and people are going to die anyway, so just get over it and be happy. Is this part of that weird cycle?
Yeah, and we want to move through it so quickly. And I think one of the things I researched as well for the book is around the idea of slow thought, the slow food movement, just the slow movement in general, that we want everything to be quick. We want quick fixes, and we expect people to metabolize their emotions too quickly. In change management at Hatch, the work that we're doing, it's just amazing how quickly people expect their businesses to move through change, and they just expect it to be fixed. And I think that that's part of what politicians they want. And I get it. Everyone is like, we're worn out by this experience, but we have to allow people, we have to hold space for people to have the time to feel what they're feeling, to really allow ourselves to experience it and experience the good and the bad. Because in that negative, in that, no mud, no lotus, in that negative is some incredible opportunity for us to see ourselves, to see other people, to see the world and the actual operating of the world, for better or for worse. And the more we try to move through it, to just plow through it, I think that we're losing a huge opportunity to learn.
Right. Well, yeah. And I'm thinking we're at a moment of time of, like, when you talk about the speed and not moving through this, I mean, it's sort of like this pandemic has sort of come at a perfect confluence when we have no attention span. We have the attention span shorter than a goldfish. Thank you, Microsoft, for studying that one. Thank you. I was joking to say that I wish I'd been in that focus group. Kelly against the goldfish. Who can? Was it a staring contest? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway. We have this. We have these short attention spans. We operate in these super cycles in terms of the long term planning is between here and the next quarter of quarterly earnings. That's long term planning. We're swiping, we're tapping, we're accessible 24/7. Do you think that kind of that in terms of how we now behave and technology that has caused us to kind of not have this space, not have this sort of work through? How do we get to a slower movement?
If we're moving, there's no question that, and this comes back to, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about it. I've been talking about it for years, that when we're not present, when we struggle to be present, and part of that is we don't want to be present because we're being distracted. Part of it is we don't want to be present because it hurts too much or because it's too difficult. But when we're not present with either other people or even just in the moment, then how can we expect to be curious? How can we expect to follow some path to be open to awe? We can't, you only see the Grand Canyon for the first time once. So it can't all be about, oh, wow, there it is. That's not, we only get to experience the birth of our child once. And so we have to be open for the other little micro moments of awe. And I think that we have absolutely, we are damaging our presence. You mentioned that it's insectine, right? It's less than a goldfish. And I think some of that is disconnecting from our technology, which is hard for me. I will admit, physician heal thyself. I love my phone. But I think it's also about really learning how to connect with human beings. And some of that is around our empathy. I worry a little bit about what's going to happen with all of the Zoom calls and the video conferencing, if we're going to think that that's a real substitution for connecting with people. I think the data is still out as to whether we can truly feel and develop empathy based on a video. I don't know. But I think that being able to, this time away from people, those micro moments with people, I'm hoping will have us appreciate all of the little ways that we connect with our community and with humanity on a daily basis that maybe we've taken for granted, and perhaps that will make us a bit more present.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as you said the Grand Canyon and stuff, I think what I would hope, and as I grab my phone, is like, I would hope with some of these things that we have the anticipation that it is going to be amazing. Like, as soon as you said the Grand Canyon, could we maybe do it without making it an Instagram moment?
And actually, there's so much data that shows as soon as you take a picture, your brain forgets it, because your brain wants to outsource as much as possible. Your brain wants to make life easier. It's got a lot to manage. It needs to allow us to breathe and walk and chew gum at the same time. So there's a lot of data that says as soon as you take that picture, it's gone. And so if you want to remember it, then you have to remember it, and maybe take a picture the second time or later in the day. And I think there are a lot of ways that we can find that presence. Meditation, but only certain types of meditation. So less loving kindness meditation and more things like walking meditation. There's some great, the idea of street walks or of urban exploring, ways to sort of see space in a different way, taking a different route, just even, on a journey that you take very commonly. Go one street north and see what happens. I wrote about that in the Wonder a Bit. Breathing. I mean, that sounds so simple. Breathing or singing a song where you have to manage your breath is another way to really root you to being present.
So if I sang, it would be on the full side of awe, and we will not be doing that because I do not.
Oh, come on! Now I feel like we need to hear something.
No. Things I don't do. Things I don't do. Not happening. So what can people do? You've mentioned some meditation. Let's go through some things that people can do now to start to cultivate. And this feeling, awe towards wonder. What can they be doing, and how, since we are on pause, what are some things you're thinking about in terms of, I have to do this. No, Ian, no, not happening. No. But what can we do in terms of the slow, like, being more I'm going to say thoughtful in the sense of, we are off, for many of us, we are off the hustle, habitat, rabbit, little hamster thing. What can we do to be more, kind of take it in and use all of these senses and then act?
I think the first step is to really understand what I call what's your awe archetype. So what gives you goosebumps? There's actually different types of awe. So there's social awe. That's the people that you surround yourself with. That would be relationships. Love could be a type of social awe, the birth of your child, that kind of thing. There's natural awe. So natural awe listeners, we talked about the Grand Canyon or an incredible sunset, something like that. And then cognitive awe, which would be the written word or the spoken word or music. And even understanding what it is that your awe archetype is can help you then access that more often. And I think that it's really important for our relationships as well. So if you're in a relationship with somebody that it's all about natural awe and they're always wanting to take hikes, and meanwhile for you, it's about listening to opera in a darkened room, just to know that you guys have that difference. And maybe that's something you're not going to be able to share is really important, because that is primary to how we function, is to try to find those things that give us goosebumps. And if they're different among the people that we surround ourselves with, then that becomes difficult. On the flip side, if you actually have that conscious conversation with somebody and say, I don't just love going to gigs, or I don't just love listening to music, it actually, it's what gives me goosebumps, and you go, oh, okay, that's primary to somebody, and that can be a mechanism just to talk about it. I think even just starting to talk about what gives us goosebumps, what is that awe archetype, that awe elicitor for us, is really powerful. Understanding it, and then this sounds pretty stupid, but then trying to do more of it. So if it is natural, and right now you can't get outside because you live in a city and we're not allowed to be around, there's some really great research out of UC Berkeley that shows that even watching drone footage of awe-inspiring environments can have the same kind of impact for us from a mental health point of view. So if you love to take a good hike and haven't been able to, there's so many resources online that will allow you to access that. If it is music, but you haven't been able to see a gig, try to watch a live one, a video of a live one on TV. If it is spoken word, try to access that. If it's a good book, then it's really about making the time for the things that give you goosebumps, that get you excited in that way, without seeing it as being a waste of time. Oh, there's so many other things I should be doing. This is the opportunity to really focus on that. And I think knowing to have that sort of internal conversation with yourself, well, what is it that does that for me? A lot of us haven't even really sort of tapped into that.
Yeah. And I think that's knowing, and that's brilliant. Like tap into what is your awe archetype, because then some of the things that you're watching and doing that are making you feel bad about yourself, or guilty for you're not being productive or doing whatever else, you can start to kind of tune that out, and downplay, that kind of element, of what is going on.
I think a lot of people struggle with meditation, ironically, when they are really stressed out. When they're anxious, they think, I just can't find that way to be quiet. And so I think that this is it's a way to start into that quietude, to find, okay, well, meditation isn't going to work for you right now. What is it that just gives you a sense of that, wow, and at least do that. And that will feel like you're occupying yourself, and perhaps in a positive way. It's a bit like there's a book called Love Languages, this idea of what's your love language? What is it how you experience, receive love? It's a bit like that, how you want to experience that wow moment. And understanding it and honoring that that's helpful for your mental health, I think is really important right now.
Yeah. What happens if we have lots of things that give us that awe?
That's great. The more the merrier. I think that's terrific. And I think the challenge will be, obviously right now, awe shared is awe multiplied, and the way that we can do that with our friend groups and the like, it's harder to do right now. But I think with the internet, there's opportunities for us to connect in other ways. But this is probably the time when we really need to be listening internally. But if there are lots of things that give you goosebumps, that's fabulous. And in fact, there is a lot of research that say there are certain types of people that are more open to those experiences, that are naturally more curious, and seek information in different ways, and therefore they are more awe prone. But also, I believe it's a muscle. I think that we can exercise those aspects of ourselves so that we can start to see wonder in places that maybe we hadn't before, that we can really start to notice those little elements that perhaps we started to go into autopilot before. And I think autopilot is very dangerous in that sense, that it starts to gloss over the little things that we can notice that can bring us awe. And so to try to get out of autopilot and really notice every little step that we take. But of course, that slows time down. So some people just want time to speed up and for all of this to be over. And I guess that would be the other thing, is I would encourage people to sort of sit in this time and allow it to sometimes be a bit like treacle, knowing that there's things that we can gain from that experience.
Wow. This has been amazing. Of course, now there's all sorts of, I'm going to say many more questions I want to ask you. I'm gonna say, but I want to tie this to Hatch. I want to tie this to leaders right now. What if someone was leading and managing people and they were watching this right now in this conversation and they're thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to do this in my personal life. How can they use this in their leadership and management style?
I think even being willing to have the conversation about, and if you don't want to use the words awe or wonder, being willing to have the conversation with people about what gives them goosebumps is helpful. I think even allowing people to take the time out of their day to find this is helpful, especially when we look at things like our work environments, the way that we ask people to work. If we can put wonder into those spaces, that's really helpful. But the easiest, the simplest is just around curiosity. So allowing the people encouraging the people that work with us to be curious, to go down some rabbit holes that maybe don't always equate to some sort of result, and allowing people to get excited about being just the action of being curious, because there are different types of curiosity. There's the kind of curiosity where you just want to close the loop, where I need to find this answer, I'm going to close it. And then there's a kind of curiosity that is just, I'm interested in the world. What we know is when you have that kind of curiosity, you're able to see the opportunities, the innovations that may exist that we couldn't otherwise. So if you're always asking your team, go and find this answer, report back, find this answer and report back, as opposed to explore this and tell me what you learn, then you're not limiting someone and what they might be able to bring back to the conversation. And so
right.
I think
it's not tied to a KPI or whatever.
Correct.
It's like specific.
So it's this idea of epistemic curiosity, where you're curious about the process of learning, and that's when you become a sponge, as opposed to a very directed curiosity, which is go find this answer. And when you do that, you put blinkers on. And I think that as bosses, we tend to say, get this answer for me. And that means this person is going to be looking like that. And they're not maybe going to see the other opportunities that they could be bringing to the solution that we've already decided what the outcome should be. They just need to bring it back to us. Instead, allow people to be a bit more holistic in the way that they seek answers.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, when I'm thinking all this, and I was going to say for you, Monica, if you haven't watched Ray Anderson's TED Talk, put that on your list, because I'm wondering.
I'm really writing that down now.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites, and someone who transformed his company, carpeting business, transformed his company to sustainability, and how he went into the employees and said, we will take no more from the earth than we give back. Like we will be a zero impact company. And he looked to the employees and he said, make it so. And everyone came up with ideas. So there's this part of me that's like, oh man, right? Like here was someone who was now sort of, the awe part of, well, this is awful what my industry and my company, being a petroleum-based company, is doing to the planet. But wouldn't it be awesome if we could do something else? And then how we led. So yeah, it's one of my favorite TED Talks. It's one of my favorite TED Talks.
I will check it out. And I think there are some great books on curiosity and just even understanding what curiosity does to our brain, because that's the beginning. And I fear that we're sort of training curiosity out of kids right now. Mm-hmm. And so then when they come to the workplace and they are not asking the right questions or sort of exploring things in the way we expect them to, we become frustrated. But what do you expect when, you have kids as young as 6 and 7 who are basically being judged by their ability to perform on a certain standardized test, who are criticized for asking too many questions? I mean, we even joke, we're like, no more questions. That is part of their process where they're learning whether I become curious, meaning I Google this answer and that's it. And there's even research now about if we can Google an answer, we won't remember it, as opposed to the actual process and the joy of learning and the joy of being curiosity for the sake of curiosities, the process of that. And I think that we can go even deeper and start in the school systems and look at how school systems and some interesting schools like the Minerva schools that are looking at schooling in an entirely different way, as opposed to very traditional, you answer these questions, that means you've performed, okay, spit out into the world.
Yeah, no, as soon as you said kids and curiosity, I'm going to pull up our buddy Ian here, the CEO and founder of Lottie Dolls, and just give a shout out to Ian, not with a tune, that, you think about as soon as you said that, in kids and curiosity, I mean, the games and toys, not just the toys, but the games and the resources that Ian has on the Lottie Dolls website, I was sort of like, okay, first of all, I'm a tea drinker. I'm not going to waste a tea bag, but I really do want to try out that tea bag rocket.
And I think, and this is a great opportunity, definitely with, I know a lot of kids are being homeschooled, but I think there's a little bit more flexibility around maybe how children can be learning. I'm hoping that the teachers are going to start seeing this as an opportunity for kids to take some more self-directed learning on, so that they can, because if children can start to get excited about the process of learning, that will have knock-on effects to who is leading us, in 20 years, the way that they approach problem solving.
I thought with some of my friends who kids at home and was like, how do you get a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old sit in front of a computer all day? Can we give them an exercise, give them something on the computer, and then send them off for a few hours to do something and come back and tell what they learned, other than sitting in front of the screen? But that we'll save for another day. I loved your suggestion on bosses to say, go out and tell us what you've learned, rather than find me the answer. I was, like I said, I have so many more questions, but I know where to find you. I know where to get you to get up and put on some lipstick and
that's the first lippy in like a week. So everyone should feel very privileged.
They're very, very, very. Monica, thank you for talking to us about awe and wonder, and boy, it's done good things for my brain. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us and chatted. And I do have to give another shout out to my buddy Teresa. It was great. Yes, I would say excellent food for thought.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was amazing. So thank you, everyone. For everyone who is in Monica's time zone, enjoy the rest of your day. For everybody else, hope that this was a good start to your day. And we'll see you again soon.